Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Threezero DLX scale diecast Transformers figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at another figure from the Transformers Bumblebee movie. Specifically based off her appearance in the Cybertron opening scene, it's Arcee. Now I do have to say a massive thank you to Threezero for sending me this review sample. They haven't told me what to say though. All opinions are still, as always, 100% my own. This is a proper review through and through. If you are looking to grab Arcee, I have popped the link to Threezero's site in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so that you're notified as soon as a brand new Threezero Transformers review goes live on the channel. This box art, not only is it visually striking, but the color palette, it works perfectly for Arcee. We've got the pink, we've got the silver, and we've also got black in the background, just to help those lighter colors pop a little bit more. They've added some lens flares in for some visual interest, why the heck not? Her name up the top, Transformers off to the side, as well as an image of Arcee. I'm pretty sure this is the actual figure. On the side of the box, Arcee, half an Autobot symbol. I love this pink color, it just pops on the dark background. And speaking of the background, there's this tarmac texture over the top. I'm not quite sure what they were going for, considering this is Cybertronian mode Arcee, and on Cybertron, I don't think they have tarmac. Still, not the end of the world, I do like the way it looks. Around the back, more of that tarmac texture, very fine and subtle back here though. An Autobot symbol, Arcee. Then the world's teeniest, tiniest warnings and legal info. You can also flip open the front cover, an image of Arcee on this very G1 grid background, love that, as well as an open window showcasing the figure inside. I'm hoping this is not the only live-action Arcee we get in DLX scale, because in Rise of the Beasts, she was a core member of the Autobot team in that film, not to mention her design was just really cool. This design, it's straight up classic G1 all the way down to the color scheme. First in-hand impressions, she feels super sturdy, and I can already tell pieces are cold to the touch. There's a lot of diecast here. What we are going to do now though is get all of her accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything she comes with. Starting off with the display base first. This is the DLX style staple. We've seen this with all of the figures in the DLX line. For Arcee, I would have been fine if they didn't go the consistency route and they'd given her a bespoke display base. Why do I say that? This thing is huge, and Arcee isn't massive, she's not overly so she kind of just stands around the front of this display base and all the rest of this space is not used at all. Also, when you have her connected to the flight pole because she's not super tall, even if you angle this thing all the way forward, she kind of just hovers in mid-air, which I don't love. This time, I would have been perfectly satisfied with a bespoke display base for Arcee. There's a lot of sculpt work on the surface, I'm not saying it doesn't look good, it does. Transformers Bumblebee in hot pink, which matches Arcee. Then you've already seen the flight pole arm, it can be adjusted forward and back, up and down, it's telescopic, and you can adjust this piece if you want her a little bit more in the air or a little bit less so. I'm 99% sure in the film she only had one blaster, now we only see her for a split second. She's talking on her comms while holding her blaster up on the right side. She totally could have had a second one stored somewhere. I'm not complaining, more weapons always better than not enough. The sculpt work is the same across both, they look sharp as heck. They're nice and shiny and metallic. You've got this oil stain wash over the top sunken into all of that sculpted detail. The barrel is a proper port, so if you have blast effects, maybe you could plug one in there. And I also like the silver dry brushing over the top. It makes it look even more shiny and metallic. So basically, they're painted really well. You get some open palm hands with splayed out fingers, some trigger finger hands, one for either side, closed fists, and some relaxed open palm hands, already installed on Arcee. The sculpt work is also sharp on these, just like the blasters, painted in gunmetal with silver dry brushing. And there's some super bright, glossy white on the backs of all the hands. What we are going to do now, though, is get Arcee herself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Threezero are out here just quietly achieving, in the background, working on this DLX scale line and killing it every single time. This Arcee is that good. She might be slightly smaller in scale, and she might be just based on the Cybertron opening scene of Bumblebee versus the Rise of the Beast film, arguably her bigger live-action appearance. I don't care about any of that. This figure, it's blowing my mind. The engineering is always crazy, and it is. There's a lot of die-cast here, and the paint applications, stunning. This figure will stand out alongside your other G1 live-action Travis Knight design characters. I am hoping they keep this line going. Eventually, I do want a complete shelf of G1-style Travis Knight design Autobots in the collection. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Arcee's head sculpt. And what a head sculpt this is. Travis Knight and the design team, y'all killed it. This looks like G1 Arcee immediately, but also feels like a modernized, updated version. This is how you do a translation from G1 to live action. And Threezero, they translated it super well into a practical thing. They took what was just CGI and made it a real, tangible object. The sculpt work is off the charts good. You've got all the line work on the face. You even have a furrowed brow up top, defined nose and lips. She looks like a feminine bot. You also have the circles on the side of the head sculpt, which kind of mimic Princess Leia's hair buns. I think that's what they said they were going for with the original design. And having this antenna on one side, which you do have to insert, and it's made of plastic, so please be careful doing so, it just adds some visual interest to this side of the head sculpt, making it an asymmetrical design. The eyes, currently lit up, have a lot of detail in them, and when you turn them off, it still looks good. It's not like you have to have the eyes on all the time for the head sculpt to be serviceable. You can make out the pupil and the iris. They've also done washes just in that furrowed brow area, so that sculpted line work, it pops against the light pink. Speaking of the light pink, you've got some darker pink for the circles, and then the main bulk of the head sculpt is done in pearlescent white. When the light hits it, it just sparkles. Underneath the head sculpt for the neck area, there's even an insane amount of sculpt work down here, and it's all painted perfectly. You've got some gold sections, you've got some silver sections, you've got dry brushing and washes in the crevices all the way around. Around the back, this is also very G1. Having these pieces form her backpack, the remnants of her vehicle mode, that's exactly as it should be. It gives her a nice G1 style silhouette, and it adds a little bit more depth back here. You can rotate them, they also hinge forward and back so you can adjust them, or if you're not a fan of them for some reason, you want Arcee to be a lot sleeker, you can just remove them and then you can just have the robot mode without the kibble around the back. I'm going to keep them there because I'm all about accuracy. And I like the callback to the G1 design. Who doesn't? The silver sections are nice and shiny. There's this brown oil stain wash over the top. You also have some thrusters at the bottom, some vent work on the sides done in gunmetal with silver dry brushing. And the pink? Oh, it pops. It's super saturated. We've got silver dry brushing, just very subtly on the surface, as well as some washes in the crevices. For the actual body of Arcee, also done in that same pink, more of that pearlescent white from the head sculpt. And this spinal column detail, not only is it very sharp, but it's functional. When you bend her forward for articulation, there's more of it tucked up underneath and also hidden below the midsection. Very impressive. See what I mean? Without the LEDs turned on, she still looks good. She looks alive and well, unlike usually with Transformers figures when you turn the LEDs off, they look completely dead and lifeless. That's because of all this sculpted and printed detail on the surface of the eyes. When you turn them on, that blue to me, it just doesn't work as well as the yellow and black does. I have no problem at all displaying her with the LEDs turned off. The shoulder pads are nice and rounded, and we have some hidden robot bits and pieces underneath, pistons and linkages and whatnot. The biceps have what looks like a spring on the front. And for these forearm panels, you can move the blades forward and back, plus they rotate. For a very specific reason, not just to hide all this detail. You'll see what I mean a little bit later. Her chest panel has this little vent just above the Autobot symbol. Red on the white surface will definitely pop, and it does. Then down below for the ab section, there's a lot to look at here too. We've got line work, this little grill piece, and washers everywhere. Silver dry brushing, contrasting colors, silver, grey, white, gunmetal, pink. This thing is just detailed to the nines. The proportions here are very strong. She tapers down at the waist, then flares out at the hips and the thighs, then slowly tapers down towards the ankles. These knee pads are really big and spiky, and this pop of pink breaks up the very white and grey and silver legs. And around the back, all of this robot stuff tucked in the joints, it's a nice touch. Then for the ankles, or the back of the legs I should say, these wheels, they can rotate forward and back if you want them to sit down and act as heel spurs to keep her balanced. Totally doable. If you want them tucked up and out the way for posing, also an option. Then these pieces that flare out do give me a very motorcycle vibe. And Arcee being a motorcycle in Rise of the Beasts, it just makes sense. It's a natural design evolution. For the feet being these two-pronged bits around the front, and made of metal, that's just pretty interesting to look at. There's some pretty weird looking feet, but this is an alien robot after all, so adding some design flair like this in these feet, very Bayverse Optimus Prime-esque if you will, I don't hate that. I do want to go over a couple of small housekeeping things and then we'll move on. The first of which is how to turn her LEDs on. You simply want to remove this panel and set it aside for later. It's very, very small, so be careful not to lose it. And then normally you'd unscrew a teeny screw on the underside of her helmet. I've ditched the screw because it's held in place securely enough by friction. I don't think the screw is entirely necessary. And it just adds an extra step for turning the LEDs on that can be a little bit frustrating because that screw is kind of challenging to get to. Then to turn the lights on, you simply push the button, reinstall this panel on the top of the head sculpt, and then you pop that little panel back on, which I am not going to try and do on camera. Then to install her display base down below, the second housekeeping thing, you want to remove this panel, and then you can plug the display base in. Pretty straightforward. One other thing that I want to call out is this wash in the tires. A very nice touch, Threezero. It makes these tires look super dirty and grimy, like Arcee has been driving around on Cybertron. Now, the batteries that Threezero use for Arcee, and also for hopefully more of their Transformers figures in the future, are these batteries on the right. This is a standard Hot Toys Iron Man battery. As you can see, the Threezero is significantly bigger, and there are two of these in that Arcee head sculpt. So I'm thinking that even though I don't love button cell batteries, at the very least they've used bigger ones, so they should last longer. For a quick side-by-side comparison, had to kick things off with Bumblebee because his name is in the title of the movie that this Arcee is based off. Arcee alongside B-127. Technically, this isn't the right B to pair her with, it should be Cybertronian mode Bumblebee, but right now, we don't have him. I am hoping that Threezero go back and make that version of B eventually. This one, he scales great with Arcee. She's a little bit shorter, and I think that's spot on. Just because this guy is just insanely good, it's the Rise of the Beast version of Bumblebee. This Arcee is not quite the same design as we saw in Rise of the Beasts. I reckon she still works if you want to have one right now alongside your Rise of the Beast figures. You could do a hell of a lot worse than this DLX Arcee. Well, compared to the Bumblebee movie version of Optimus, number one, I am so happy that the G1 Autobot team is coming together nicely in DLX scale. Number two, Optimus is significantly taller, exactly as he should be. G1 Decepticons, they just hit different. This super classic, gorgeous looking DLX scale Soundwave, he also scales perfectly with Arcee. And with his red LEDs turned on, her blue LEDs, they will stand out in the display. I am hoping, still praying that Threezero keep making more of these designs from the Cybertron scene in the Bumblebee movie in DLX scale. Threezero, keep the line going, please. Going over articulation, not only is it insane, it's very well hidden. With a cursory glance, you probably wouldn't even spot most of the joints. Starting off with her head sculpt, it's on a double ball peg and an articulated neck, looking forward to there as her chin does collide with the armor, although you can tuck it behind and then it will go a little bit further. Going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The shoulder pads are articulated, do move them, you wouldn't want to scuff them up against the body and cause any paint rub. The arms will go up to there combined with the butterfly joint at the shoulder, going forward and back, but they do collide with her backpack. If you want them to go further back, you could always remove the thing. Speaking of the butterfly joint, it'll go out as well as up and down. Swivel at the bicep underneath the shoulder pad, and when you collapse it, it's completely hidden. Then for the elbow, this is the first time I've ever seen this, and it's kind of crazy. It's completely hidden. You can bend it forward to there until you rotate this cover out, and then you'll get the full range. And it does go past 90. Then for the wrist peg, it's a ball joint. The torso being on multiple joints, one at the midsection and one at the waist, crunches forward to there. I'm always super impressed with how far these Transformers can crunch forward. Going back to there, you can swivel at the bottom or at the top, and you also get pivot side to side. These panels, kind of like hip skirts, they are articulated on ball joints, but they do key in with this little tab, so you will have to wedge your finger under and pry it out for maximum range of motion. Now the legs will go forward to there, until you drop them down at the thigh. It's not the hip that drops down, it's the thigh panel. So going forward to there, maybe even just a little bit further, going out to there, and also swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee, which does go past 90, and it might just be one of the most fluid joints I've felt in a while, as multiple panels move and shift as you bend it. Then for the feet, they look deceptively simple. There is a lot going on. These wheels can shift up and down, the whole foot can move forward and back, it can swivel, and you have ankle tilt. Plus, around the front, you also have toe articulation. Wrapping up on Threezero's DLX scale Transformers Bumblebee Arcee. This figure is great. I can pretty much leave it at that. You've already seen how much I've gushed about the paint applications being stunning, because they are. The engineering being crazy, because it is. Having die-cast content, because it does. You can see what I'm getting at, right? This figure is that good. Not to mention the proportions, they're just spot on. This literally looks like Threezero took the animation model from that opening scene of Transformers Bumblebee, and somehow, using dark magic, replicated it into a physical thing, and put it in front of me in my lightbox. I'm so impressed and so happy. I love Arcee all the way back to the G1 movie. She was a badass, and this figure, yeah, it makes me very, very excited to keep collecting this line. I want Ratchet, I want Wheeljack, not the Rise of the Beast one, the Cybertron version from Transformers Bumblebee, and the rest of the team. Brawn, that would be an awesome figure to have in this line. So Threezero, do keep this going. You're on a roll here. Arcee, she's incredible. Now I know this is going to sound silly because I just gushed about how good she is, because she is. If you don't believe me, just scroll back and watch the review again and you can make up your own mind. You can mute me if you like, and I'm still sure you'll come to the same conclusion I did. This is not a promotional video, this is a review sample provided to me by Threezero. All opinions are 100% my own. If you are looking to grab her, link to Threezero's site is in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe will catch you in the next video.